How's it going? Mike here from the Academy of Animated Art, and we are going to get into our Friday night live lighting critique. Just gonna wait a minute here to get live on Facebook. Looks like we are all set up there. So you guys know the format. We've done this enough times now. You know the drill. We've got comments in the Facebook section. I have the chat window over in Zoom if that's where you're at. Let me go ahead and, because I always forget to change my name here from Jasmine to Mike. So I'm gonna go and do that so that in the recording, you'll actually see my proper name. There we go. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take you all through some of the still images, some of the videos that were submitted. I'm gonna break down everything as best I can. I hope I grabbed everything. If I did not, what I'll do is I'll run through all the videos and the images that we're gonna go through. If you don't see them, let me know. Hey, Clever. Hello, Trent. I hope everyone's doing very well. I'm doing great. I am. I just got out of Manhattan for the holiday weekend, which reminds me there won't be any sessions on Monday because it's a holiday. But out of Manhattan for the first time in a few months. Feels great, although I have a noisy neighbor here, which makes me feel at home, which is great. So if you hear any loud banging, that's what that is. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We've got a lot of great submissions. And like I said, let me just run through what we've got so far. And if you do not see yours, just kind of scream at me. So let me just go through here. So this is these are all the still images that we have. And Clever's here. So Clever, yeah, you just submitted that stuff. You got it in just under the wire. I usually check like 10 minutes before we go live. I think the record is like 4 minutes before we go live that I'll actually catch one. So we're gonna go through these. I'll talk about all those. Clever, we'll start with you because I saw you were online here. And then in terms of the videos, we have Megara and Caesar. Got this one. And this one here, Pasqua. You sent over, yeah, so this is cool stuff. Okay, so Pasqua, you sent over a couple of videos, but for some reason, they were being super janky. So totally fine, we can look at them here. I just won't be able to do any like actual paint over stuff or anything on them. So, okay. All right, so Clever, you're online, so we'll go ahead and get started with you. So let's start with the 3 submissions from the city scene. And I know you said you had some caveats to these, like you weren't, like this one's, there's gonna be snow and this is just the raw render. That's cool. As far as a raw render goes, this is looking pretty good. I think that you're off to a good start. The one thing that I would consider doing is just this light here is getting a little bit on the flat side. I would make that almost like a rim light on her side and then allow her core to get a little bit darker, because you can see here like across her legs, across her backside, across her torso, a little bit flat, not the most dynamic of shaping, and we really are going to want to zero in on her. So let's get some, you have a real opportunity here to use these lights and this light to really create some strong rims, some strong like wrapping light around here to really kind of frame that up. And then there's some tricks that we can do to get the to get her to pop off in the background. But I saw an earlier version of this where you had the snow in there, and I think you've got a lot of good potential there. So the depth of field stuff, I don't want to like totally poo-poo it, but I think it's messing with your scale a little bit, and it's making the whole thing feel kind of small. And the other thing about it is we're not seeing any depth of field in the foreground. It's all in the background. So it would be fine if you're trying to do like a tilt shift look, which is like a photography trick where you make something big look very small by, it's a long story, but basically it's just like super depth of field stuff on large scale scenes. But what we're missing is like this stuff down in here, and maybe this over here would be out of focus as well. And what ends up happening is, and actually what it does is like this out of focus kind of blends in with this haze on her hair, and it makes her look out of focus. So it's not my favorite thing. If you want to go that way, go for it. But I think your other work is stronger. And because like what we're seeing here is a much more expansive scene, much more much vaster. I like what you're doing with the sky. I'm not quite sure what these like cluster. I think there's. I think you just do like a simple star field because there's already a lot going on up there. So this volumetric light is coming in front of her hair, like I was saying on the other one. I really think that you need to use allow her hair values to go darker to really kind of silhouette, and you kind of really feel her shape, her exterior here along this light, because we're kind of losing her shape a little bit. So really get that in there. I think you can do more pockets of haze around. Like you're getting some good haze down here, but up here it still looks pretty dry. And then also just kind of like isolating within the colors. Like you've got some cool colors going over here, like really kind of create like a green haze around here, a little bit of an orangey yellow one down here. I do really like the like little bits of specular highlight that you're getting coming down here. I think that's really nice. I think you could probably go ahead and just darken this whole corner because that's not doing you any favors. And then just like darkening all this down here to really kind of zero it in. But I think I've seen the progress of this, and I think that what you're doing is really, really cool. And the same thing with the note on the I'm making this a little bit more rimmy because it's just hitting the broad side of her face a little bit too much, and I would just create a little more shaping in there. Let's see what else. If you can on these lights, now I know that this is a JPEG, these submissions on Facebook, so this won't apply. But oh, actually, I'm on the wrong thing. But the one thing that I would be interested in is, and like this is going to just be a bad example of this. So like if I take this down, like this is all just kind of one shape in here. What I would like to see is a little more definition of, because I would like to see a little more definition of the light bulb versus the outside. Just like it's so subtle and it's so nitpicky, but just getting that little bit of variation of where the bulb center is with like a little bit of fall off in there it actually makes a little bit of a difference, because this kind of flat shape of white doesn't like, it makes it feel a little bit more CG. And I'm only saying that because I worked on a shot like this and I made the same mistake when I was doing that as well. So, but all in all, I think that your scene has got the right level of scale, the right level of complexity. It's just a matter of pushing and pulling these final elements to get it to really stand out there. In terms of your other shots, so again, raw renders. With this element, I think we go softer on the shadow for one, and like you said, you're going to fix up the teeth. My biggest concern though is the lack of shaping down in here. I want to figure out a way to either favor the light so it's not like totally behind him, so it's kind of creeping over one shoulder or the other, coming in here or here, and so we're able to kind of get a little bit of wrap going on his face. But because what we're getting is just like straight behind him, and it's not going to do us any favors going forward. And then in terms of, yeah, it's kind of tough to see the background stuff. Let's see these other ones. I mean, you kind of have it here where it looks like it's favored coming in from the screen right side, so make sure that we're getting that. Tree's looking a little funky here. There's a little bit of a line going across. I would just make sure that there's like good shaping coming around here, maybe a little bit on this rock. And then like we talked about in terms of, because you'll see this when you go into a forest, is, well, two things. One, your key light looks like it's a little bit on the yellow side. I would move that more towards the warmer hues, because I'm seeing it here when it hits his fur. It's feeling a little bit yellow, and I really want to warm that up. And so what would happen is once that hits the ground here, this light will get a little bit warmer, then it bounces up, and you get a little more warmer bounce up in there on him. In terms of the rest of it, feeling pretty good. This grass is looking pretty good. It'd be nice to get some more subsurface on that to kind of make it feel a little bit more, but like you're getting good light and dark patches on the trees back here. The one thing that you might want to watch out for is just filling in back here with some, like maybe a back plate of trees or something, just to kind of, because right now it feels like a little bit of a sparse, it feels like a little bit of a, let's go back to it, a little bit of a sparse forest, and I think that we can just plug it in a little bit. Like it doesn't look like, it looks like the forest ends in 30 meters back there. So I know that adds CPU time, but literally if you just had an instead of just a sky with a forest back there that matches this, it would work out really well. Okay, so let us see who else is on here. I'm looking. So we got, okay, Clever, and we got Juan on here as well. Juan, I think you had a submission, so let's go ahead and check that one out. Move my face out of the way. Yes, okay. So we have your city lights scene. I think this is looking, this has been looking really great since the onset so far. You're off to a good start. You've got those glows around the building. I think those are looking perfect. I think you got your beams looking really well. The last thing, because I was looking at your reference and looking back at your image, the last thing that I think that we can do is punch up the window lights. So looking at the reference points and looking at some of the windows and stuff, and because we've got some good haze, and these are like, the darks are getting a little bit darker and you've got a little more haze in yours. But I still think that, like, especially like in here and back over here, I'm thinking that these windows can get punched up a little bit more to kind of stand out. And then in here, it's just getting a little bit too bright. I would tone that down maybe 20%. It's just like kind of crushing values in there, and we're kind of losing that a little bit. And I would tone that down. And then, as always, the more variation you can get going back into these buildings, like especially back over here again, like just some separation between these two. Let's turn this off so you can see what I'm talking about. So like separation from these buildings to these buildings back here with just a little bit more atmospheric. But all in all, I think this is looking really great. It's funny because like my first instinct when I looked at this, I was like, oh, you should throw some stars in there. But you definitely shouldn't, because cities are so much light pollution that you never ever really see stars. And then the last one, if you want, you can add like little dotted lights on top of these or something, because that's what you get on buildings, that they would indicate that to make sure that a plane doesn't hit them. But yeah, that's pretty much all that I have on this one. I think this one's going along really, really well. Let's see who else is here on Facebook. Ooh. Here we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. So like I said, if anyone wants to chime in, over there, if anyone's live and wants to see their work, let's see. Trent, did you have a submission? I don't believe you did, but that's okay. We can start here. I'll do Abba Hashak, and anybody who wants to chime in if they're live, I'll do yours next. So this one, you've done a couple of these like super dark ones, and they're really cool. I do think, like right now I have the brightness of my screen turned up all the way, and they're really tough, but I think that you can go, let's look at the levels, not on that layer. We're gonna look at the levels on this layer. And I think you can go brighter. Like, I know we want to keep it dark overall, but like we're losing so much opportunity for value range. So if I push this up a little bit more, I can even like, there's even like, we can even go a little bit darker on this, and man, these blacks are getting crushed. But I think something like that would be a little bit better in terms of the glow and the brightness and the whole thing. In terms of, like, this is something else I would look into. So I really like the little bit of rim on her fingers from the candle, but the subsurface is a little bit too much. Like, you wouldn't get, candlelight isn't that intense. You would get that if you were like holding a really bright bare bulb or something. I would tone down the subsurface there. I really, really, really liked like these individual little patches of light that you're getting, like this little patch of light here. This like variation coming up and down here is really nice. I would also focus on the black hair. You're doing a really good job of getting some specular highlights in there. It's something that we always talk about, but I would maybe try and get some of this like warmer specular highlights to kind of complement that cool one that you're getting on top. Her eyes are super creepy, which I think is the point. So we'll leave that as is. This butterfly over the mouth is kind of cool. It's probably just low res, but like you can kind of, I don't know if you can see it on your guys' screens, but in here, the, and this is when I start sliding stuff around. Again, this is probably because it's a JPEG, but the black values are getting super crushed in there. Just make sure we don't have that. This candlelight will produce a slightly softer shadow than that. But overall, I think your biggest thing that you want to focus on is getting those that black point and the white points exactly where you need them. Like bring them in just a little bit more to really kind of amp that up. And then also, let me think about this. Oh, this is a pretty good one. So like this kind of dark point at the bottom of the candle flame, that was something else I wanted to mention. I would just eliminate that. Usually that's kind of a bluish, almost transparent. That kind of dark value almost makes it look like it's a fake candle you would see at a grandparent's house on a holiday or something. Like the kind of thing you put in your windowsill so you don't burn your house down. So I think that she would probably have a real flame because she's terrifying, and I would go with that. So let's see. What else is here? Oh, Clever. Yeah, no problem, guys. It's my pleasure. See who's over here on Facebook. Okay. I think that's everyone that's live. So we're just kind of go through these individually. So I'll do all the still images first, and then we will hop over into the videos. Okay. So we've got our normally our woman in the window, but now she's busted out of the apartment, and now she's getting into a super rad muscle car. Okay, so I like what we're seeing in terms of like some of the reflections in the surrounding. It's weird that we're getting this pinch point right here because it almost makes it feel like there's a dent in the car, and I wouldn't necessarily want to see that. I would want these reflections to be a little bit like smoother. It might just be reflecting a weird HDRI map. So I would just watch out for that because it does look like it's pinching a little bit. Her eyeglasses are cool, but same thing. We should add a little bit of reflection in there. I want to see some more specular highlights on her hair. Her skin is looking a little bit rosy red. And a little bit bright. I'm not seeing enough of the subsurface here on the arm. Like I think that her arm shadows are getting a little bit dark in that region. Pants look good. Shirt could be a little bit brighter. Let's see what else. Looking at the background, there's something really crunchy about the background. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's just like there is a lot of individual shapes in these leaves. And usually at this scale, trees start to read as one mass. And it almost like, if I just like zoomed in on this, like this almost just kind of looks like just like a lot of just shiny pixels. Like it's a lot of like light and dark pixels. When I would really want to see that kind of start to mass out a little bit, like see like more of a shape of sunlight on those, which is I know is a little bit trickier given unless you have control over the geometry. The other thing about the body of the car, well, two things. Number one is I would push the black point a little bit lower. It's like the reflections are getting a little bit too lifted. Like, let me go ahead and adjust this image overall, but like just pay attention to the car. So we want to see some more of those blacks in there, and not quite as lifted as all of those are. The tires feel very matte to me. Like if you just look at this front one, the tire itself doesn't seem to have any kind of tread on it or anything like that. It just feels like a very flat surface. So I would try and get some variation in that. And then also this hubcap feels very, very, very white and just kind of directly at us. These back here, both the tire and the hubcap feel a little better, but this one, because the angle of them facing at the camera isn't quite feeling right. Trying to think. Yeah, I would start with that and see where they go. In terms of, I guess just try and get more shaping on these trees, because like they're just kind of being hit almost frontally by the key light, and I really want to see them coming in from this side. And then maybe just get a little bit of rim back here on her, and I think that would be good. Okay, let's move on to Anton's here. So it's a good submission there. So Anton, okay, you just had a interaction with Francesco in our student page. So I didn't want to interfere with that because I actually really, really liked the notes that Francesco gave. He kind of did a mock-up. For those that don't know, you guys can check out an interview with Francesco Giraldini. He is a lighting lead at DreamWorks. He's a friend of ours. He hops in the Facebook student page for those students that sign up for the Ultimate Lighting Bundle. He loves to give notes and give his feedback, and he's a really smart guy with a brilliant eye. So you can see some of the notes that he gave in here. So like some of the stuff, so the image on the left is the submission. The image on the right is kind of the mock-up, so you can see some more warm light creeping in here. Check out the specular highlights on the gun. Watch the guy's arm here, so you can see it's like a little bit bluer, a little cooler. By making it warmer, we're kind of tying them together. A little bit more key just influence kind of coming in here because the blue kick was kind of overpowering the scene a little bit. But overall, this is something we've been working with Anton for a few weeks now. If you guys have looked at our lighting challenges, and it's come really far. The specular highlights and the train toning those down has made a big difference. And really, like, I should pull up the original version, but like this compared to the very first submission, we're made a huge amount of progress. Okay, so Hari, we've got this car here in a set. So a few things. This kind of like this. Okay, a few things to wrap my head around here. Number one is just like the overall setting. Like this, oh, it's funny, I'm using a red color. Let me go ahead and switch out the color to something more complementary, green. Okay, so this sign back here doesn't feel like it's living in the same space as this. Like this car is being flooded by red light coming down from the top. This sign seems to only be hit by like some sort of blue light that I'm not seeing. I guess it's from the car, but there's no, like car headlights don't shine that far. They pretty much shine, they shine pretty far down. Unless the high beams are on, but even then it wouldn't, you know, like you wouldn't see it here and then nothingness here and then it would all of a sudden hit. So I would put whatever is in the environment that's not immediately around the car into the reddish light. We've got some plants here in the foreground. The subsurface on them is very high. They're not really reading as plants because they're kind of red in here, which they're picking up from the sky. And then the green that's shining through is almost, it's like I said, it's just very translucent and makes it look very gummy. And then we've got some green specularity here. I just think that we need another, like the red is too overpowering and we're not feeling enough of any other influence. And we're just getting like these pockets of different light. Like it's all red except for here, kind of around here and here, which would indicate to me that those are our main focal points because those are the areas of contrast. And I know that's probably not the case. I know you probably want us looking at the like at the car kind of in here, but we're losing that entirely because there's no use of separating the viewer's eye from the surroundings. So I think I would do this. I would consider, like, if you want to put it in like a red sky environment, I think that's actually a pretty cool thing because it kind of fits into like car advertisement because they go wacky with the colors now. But the way that I would handle it structurally was I would put the red light around there, allow all of this stuff in the surroundings to fall into that red value, but then put like a street lamp above this car that's kind of shining down in this region here that allows the car to separate out from that red environment. Now you'll still get, because like the most successful parts of this image are some of these like red specular highlights and the red reflections on the car and using that red to kind of really play up the contours of the car. And you'll still be able to do that, but you'll be able to do that in a way that will allow the car to stand out and really be the focal point. I would put a license plate on there. And then double check the car that you're modeling here, just because this is something, just like double check the back of it for two things. One, that there aren't any other elements that turn on when the car is on. And two, that you're not actually like, I feel like these are brake lights, these down here. And I feel like it's kind of like you want to portray the car going very fast and zippy, and you want to make sure that we don't have the brake lights on. So that would be the biggest thing. And then the other element is if you can add anything else to the environment to kind of break it up a little bit, because we're getting like there's this straight horizon line, just something back here to kind of break it up a little bit would be a big help. All right. So a good improvement here from the last time. I think we can go a little bit darker, just right up in here. Just a little bit, just to kind of really focus in on this area in here. This right down here is getting a little bit too bright. I think we can get some more bounce light back up on that, because like this region right there is looking a little bit flat. And then I just kind of want to warm up this image overall. Let's see, because like it feels, because there's so much warm light coming in, I would want it to be like a lot more reds in there. Yellows if you want them, but I kind of like this red, like rich red. Yeah, really greens. Yeah, just something along those lines to kind of just warm up the scene in its entirety. Because if you've ever been in a wooden room on a bright sunny day, that warm wood tone just like magnifies and just bounces everywhere like crazy. So that'd be my biggest note on this one. And then let's see, maybe darkening these just a little bit more in the foreground. Just kind of like everything in here should feel like a framing element, as opposed, and like everything down here, you're doing a pretty good job of that. I really like this like little bit of specular highlight that we're getting there. You're getting some good shaping there and on that chair. Maybe tone down this just a touch, because you, again, really just want all this stuff in here and back over here. Actually, all this stuff, even back behind it, like this back wall here, just tone all that down, and that would really kind of help us zero in on this central area. But coming along nicely, and you're doing a really great job there. All right, so Jai Lim, you got a teeny tiny deer looking off into nature. I think for this one, what we want to do is we're seeing a lot of cool light in the interior of the space, and I think that's working really well. I want to see it on the deer. I want to see that cool purple light shining in here and complementing the warm light coming in through the window. I think you have room to play with that warm, cool combination. The deer looks pretty low res to me. It looks a little bit out of focus. And it looks pretty simple. Like it all just kind of looks like the same brown color. Also, I think maybe because there's some haze over top of the deer here, and I think that is causing it to feel a little bit out of focus. Like the jars around it feel much more high res than the deer itself. Additionally, we've got some dark values here in the foreground. I like the idea of going there, but they're a little bit too dark. Like we're right by some sun. There would be some light bouncing in there. And then this shape right in here is a little, like, I'm not quite sure, like this whole jar in this foreground is, I'm not quite reading that it's a jar. I would almost make this less, like maybe more like this one, and that it's less transparent and just more like a solid heavy object that sits in the foreground that kind of frames it up. Yeah, but that's kind of where I am. I think I love that. Maybe go a little bit darker in the sky up here. Just kind of create some variation coming around here, because I do like this brightness of the deer looking out this way. And I think that's working really well. Oh, and then additionally, I would, since it's tough to tell the positioning of it, and I know this is glass and the light would shine through, but I would almost more focus this rim light towards the face and then kind of tone it down on the rest of the body. Just because, and play it up as like the deer is standing behind this glass and only the head kind of peeking out and around is getting the majority of the light on it. One we already covered. Let's see. Let's pause for just a second, make sure don't have any questions or anything. Okay, just humming along. Next up, we have Levi. So Levi had 2 submissions, I believe. Yes. Levi or Levy, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. So for this one, the biggest point is just the dark values. Something we talk about with the large scale scenes, especially cities. You want to make sure that everything in the foreground is going to receive the darkest black points, and then it kind of gets lifted as we go back into space. You're kind of getting it back here, like once you get way back here, but the dark points should be like, this should be darkest, and then second darkest, third, fourth, fifth, and then we'll just call this back there sixth. So that should be lifting slowly as we go back into space. And right now they're all kind of feeling the same. I would, I think a lot of it has to do with this kind of lens flare that's going over top of everything. So I would maybe pull that back and really dial in those values. I do like the ground fog that you're getting. That is making everything feel a little bit bigger, and like we're only just seeing just the very top parts of all this stuff. But your shadows are a little too crisp for the light that we're seeing. And they're also like at about a 90-degree angle to the camera. And I can see the sun here. So I would expect them to be more like in this direction. And then the last one I'll give you is like, I want you to look at the color of the sky that you have. Like super pinks, super blues, magenta, like bright saturated colors. Now I want you to look at the CG objects and tell me where you see those colors spilling in. You're not really seeing it. So what you really want to do is tie the sky with the ground, because that is a huge light source. It won't be as bright and prominent as your key, but you want it to dictate the colors of your fill value. Let's get some of those magentas in there. Let's get some of those pinks into the fill values, and I think that'll help the image out a lot. For this one, we've got 2 different key directions going on. We've got this light coming in here, and then we've got this coming in here. And it's kind of causing a little bit of confusion. So what I would do for you with this image is I would take a step back and tell myself, like, again, and I do this all the time when I'm lighting. Just take a step back and think about the 3 whys of lighting we always talk about. What is my mood that I'm trying to create? Where's my area of focus? And how am I creating visual shaping? Your shaping is in a pretty good place. Like, it's not, I think that'll be the 3rd element for what you want. Your first one is like, what kind of mood do you want to create? Because right now I'm feeling pretty neutral about this. Like, I'm not like, is this a happy bedroom after a long day? Is it a bright, warm, welcoming morning? It feels like it's later in the day. It doesn't really feel ominous. It doesn't really feel dramatic. Like, I don't know, I don't have any cues to know what the action is going to be in this scene. So that'd be my biggest one. And you can find some, like, once you kind of know your mood, then find some reference and really start to play with colors and other images that have been able to achieve your mood successfully. Then we've got directing the viewer's eye. So what is the main focal point of the story in this? Is it the telescope? Is it the table with the drawings on it? What's the area that you want your audience to look at? Because right now I'm just kind of being pulled in several directions. Maybe it's these books here on the ground. What you want, like, let's say it's these papers on the table. Definitely keep this light on, definitely keep it bright. Figure out a way to make the outside darker so that all of the, like, maybe pull some blinds down on it or something to really get our focus back there. If it's these books on the ground, let's turn off that light. Allow this area back here to go into shadow a little bit more. Really kind of angle this light so it's, so it's perfectly kind of like framing these. And then allow all of this area back in here to darken down. Like, allow this to be bright out here because that's going to be natural, but like allow all of these other elements to darken down, to really kind of hone in on what the most important element of the image is. So that would be my advice for this, I think. And then once we can get that once we get the mood and direct the viewer's eye, then we can take a look at it again next week and start to play with the shaping a little bit more. All right, so next up we have Pallavi. And again, so we got 2 here from Pallavi. Okay. Oh, interesting. These are very similar camera angles and very similar, like very flat, almost like a telephoto lens that's kind of flattening out the space, looking at it directly from the side. There's not a lot of diagonal lines. You have a style. I don't know if you know that, but you've got a style to your work here. Even though this one's very cool and these are very warm. Okay. So for this set, it's got a little bit of a similar issue of the last one, which is I don't know. There's like 3 main light sources going on, and I'm not quite sure what story we're trying to tell here. So we've got this daytime scene outside. We've got a warm kettle on the pot over here, and we've got a light that's shining over here that I'm not quite sure. Is it this lantern? Because the lantern isn't bright. And then we've got some spill light coming in from the ceiling on the, up top. So here is what I would do. I would definitely start to, I would, because like this light, okay, I'm just gonna start by saying whatever's causing this light over here, I would just turn that off, because it's not really helping you out, because you've got these super sharp shadows from it. It's not creating any shaping on this stuff. You've got some good shaping in like some of the speculars, like especially right in here, but it's not really doing you any favors. I would turn that off. And then I would tell myself, okay, what is my area of focus? What is my main light that I want to resonate for the scene? Is it the outside light coming in and this is secondary, or is this the primary and then whatever's going on outside is the secondary? If you decide that it's like this in here, I would go ahead and make it later in the day or early morning, or like something darker outside. And then it would really allow us to create a warm, cozy, cuddly feeling in here. We've got some nice fall off happening here, but like some of these values are starting to get a little bit yellow compared to how warm orange that is. Then we would allow this stuff to kind of get hit with a rim, and then this foreground area to get darker. We would lose some of the light shining in from the ceiling, but that's okay, because again, we really just like want to zero in on this area. You wouldn't see, like make sure your radius is bigger, because like you're not going to see that super sharp of a shadow. And then we can allow some of these elements over here to kind of get darker and then just get some like subtle shape. I would recommend that, because like if you look at these books, they don't really, there's no textures on them. The buckets are very simple. There's nothing, all the textures on the right side of the room are all very, very simple. And that would allow for those to kind of fall into darkness a little bit, so you wouldn't have to hit those so much. That being said, you may want to do some more shader work on the books over there. But that's how I would approach that. Like take a step back, think about your 3 whys, your 3 big whys, and then go from there. This one's a little bit more dialed in terms of the like the look of it. We've got light coming in through the window here. It's an interesting time of day, because there's such a separation between the light coming in from the window versus where it starts to pool on the ground. But then like these are getting bright down there. So I'm not quite sure. So, okay. I would light coming in through the window. It would hit probably closer in here and then fall off over there. I'm also not like, I'm seeing a little bit of extra brightness around this window, but I'm like, you really want to push up the fall off between as we're coming away from this window and light's coming in that way. Maybe there's, I guess maybe the light's coming in this way. Maybe there's an off-screen window over here. Is that what's going on? Because then we can push light in here and then push it more as bounce light up there. Either way, it's like if I just look along this back wall, the lighting is pretty similar going across. And I would really just want to feel one side of it more than the other. some individual elements that I think that can really be worked on. Cause like the cool thing about this scene is that there's just like a lot going on and a lot that you can play with in the lighting. But the difficulty is that you are starting to lose, you have an opportunity to have some issues. Like if I look in here, like those plates are super saturated blue. Let me see if I can just mock something up here real quick. So let's do this. Just take one side, make that brighter. Another version, tone it down. Lost control. There we go. So something along this lines. Now I can take this and just kind of start to play with this light kind of coming in here a little bit more. And then I would take, just do this. And now we can, oh, that's not what I meant. Invert that, make that black over there. Then I'm gonna blur that up to all oblivion. And then we can use that to be like a little bit of a vignetting element. It's a little strong now, so let's tone it down. Let's take, all right, let's just merge these for now. And again, this is all just like super quick mock-up. This is generally how I like to work with my own images sometimes. So take this, just because like it's totally non-destructive to just start taking some values and just kind of slamming them around a little bit. And you can see now we've removed some of the blue from the plates. Those are looking better. Let's play with the overall. Like, I feel like we can get some more warmth in here. Because like, I'm not seeing, like this doesn't feel like sunlight coming in. Like there's not enough warmth bouncing around in some of this stuff. And then another thing to watch out for is these curtains back in here are super glowy, and it seems like the sun's coming in from the side. So I would just solidify those up a little bit. But even just that quick mock-up versus what we had before, like we're getting a stronger feeling of which way the light's coming in. We're getting a stronger feeling that it's sunlight, it's warm. We're getting a little bit of a stronger mood that it might be kind of a happier, warmer kitchen, like a place you want to come home to after a long day. But like really kind of starting to dial in those looks. So I'm very happy that you and Levi, we did those together, because that is in a good spot. So Pasquale, we're gonna look at your video. So I'll skip these for now and I might come back to them in a little bit. Okay, Ceccio, welcome. I know you're new to the community. And again, I'm sorry for anyone who, I need to start switching these up. Next week, please remind me if I don't already do this, but remind me and I will make sure. Yes, I love this mock-up method in Photoshop. Thank you, Trent. Remind me if you have for Ceccio and Selwyn and Vishwas Jet. Let me know next week and I'll make sure to start with you all, because I always feel like people with the names to the later part of the alphabet are get the short end of the stick a little bit. Okay, for this one, man, this is kind of the same thing, because there's so many light sources and so much going on, so much neon and light bulbs and everything, and that's really cool, and it creates like a really dense, interesting scenario. But we're losing the character a little bit. Like I can't even really see her face. Like I don't really know what she's up to. Let's see. Let's go into this. That's the original scene there. Okay. So let's take this in here. All right. So now if I take this and I kind of start bringing in like the comp stuff that you did in the background. Do that again. I think I grabbed too much. But I leave some of this foreground stuff dark the way that it was, and allow some of those areas to kind of like start to stand out a little bit. In fact, let me. Then what we can do, make those darkers a little bit darker. Brights up. Take down the saturation a little bit. This mockup is less successful, but basically what I want to see, let me go back to the original. Well, you know, it's not that bad because we're starting to peel off some of this, like just stuff over top of the character, because we really want to see her light up. And this, okay, so this is what I would do for her. We've got all these lights, all this stuff surrounding. I would create kind of a glowy light pollution around her, and then use that light to create a rim on her here. And so allowing her dark silhouetted shape to kind of stand forward. And then I would turn these off and allow maybe this guy off too. And just kind of like allow little pockets around them, but then just like totally kind of darken this area and this area, so that we're getting some just rim light on them. And then the saturation on the motorcycle itself is flattening it out, and we're not getting enough shaping on there. So allow that to kind of go down a little bit, and then allow all this to kind of wash out back there, and then hit up around the edges. But one of the things about light flares, they're cool, or lens flares, they're super cool. But once they start coming over top of your focal point, things start to kind of muddy up a little bit, and we lose some of the attention there. Okay, so Silwyn, cool stuff. I think we can go much more drastic with the depth of field because we're thinking about the scale of this. I think we can Honey, I Shrunk the Kids this one and really kind of obliterate this a little bit more. Watch out for the mushroom. This is probably an error in the model itself, but just watch out for that little bit of a mushroom cap sticking through there. I feel like that would all be solidified. For the sky, I think your sky is a little bit clamped. I think we can go brighter on that little pocket of sky in there. Like let's push, like it can go up into like that region there in terms of brightness. And then from the character's looking pretty good. I would favor more light on her front than on her back. It's like this, it's just this pocket of light is kind of, it's cool, but like I really want to focus on her front half to make sure that we're paying attention to her gaze. These mushroom caps, you're getting a little bit, the fill light is competing too much with the key. So you're getting like a spot here on this side and a spot on this side. Pick one and just allow there to create some fall off one way or the other. This is really nice in here. It's a little bit off hero color. It's a little too magenta purple. And then the other thing that I would do is just create more depth as we go back into space back in here. Cause like this grass appears to be the same tone going back. So just create some more aerial perspective there. But I love like the patches of light that you're getting on there. I love your color scheme. I think this is looking really, really, this has a potential to be really good. And then just watch out for these bright highlights back in there. Just kind of like ease those back into space. And I think that'll be okay. All right. And last of the still images before we go into the videos. This is a very, very, I really, really like the setup of this one. You've got some, and I think somebody else pointed this out, but there's some just like interesting artifacts floating around in here. I don't know what those are, but I would just eliminate those because I think that they're not doing you any favors. And I think that I love the shadow shape. I think that's very cool. I like the light kind of coming up from down below. I would add a little bit more blue behind the eyes to kind of match that shadow color a little bit. And there are two elements about this that I would focus on. Well, three. Three would be good. Four. Okay, four. Here, number one, just darken a little bit back over here to like create a little more shaping on this part of the wall and allow us to really kind of focus in down here. Two, get some more light on the antenna up there. Number three is the rows down below. We're in a unique color palette for the rest of the image where it's just like these warm rust tones and some cool balloons mixed in. And all of that's coming together really well in the rest of the image. The area that it kind of changes is down here in the row. So my eye just keeps wanting to go down there because that red is so saturated. I feel like that's a story point, but I also feel like it's popping a little bit to the point where it doesn't feel like it's cohesive with the lighting of the scene. So I would maybe see if this mock-up works. Let's take this. And just pull a little bit of the red saturation out of that. Greens. Pull that down. What color would that be? Maybe something along those lines. So it's not quite as super standout, but you can definitely still get it to pop. And the last one, and this was the first one that I noticed about this, was that so I'm guessing that this, although the head looks like a cardboard box, I don't know the story of this, but it looks to me, and I might be totally off base here, but it looks like a metal robot that's rusting. But the rust isn't happening the way that rust happens. It would happen first around the joints, like you'd see it first around here would be the strongest, and then it would kind of fade out from there, versus what we were seeing, which is just kind of like a universal noise of rust. Like it would happen more here around here and like here around the ankle joints and the shoulders, and it would be less on the head. Kind of in these like flat areas and more on the corners and joints. So if that's the case, I would just maybe take another pass at the materials and just kind of focusing it in on those areas. But I love the colors are looking really beautiful. Everything's looking really nice here. And I think that you are well on your way. So now I want to jump over into the, hi Jim. Oh, sorry. I missed yours earlier. I apologize for that. I missed seeing that you were on here live. I'm sorry if you had to wait a little bit. Okay, so we've got a couple of video pieces. So I'll take us through this one first. So this is a very cool one from Caesar. Love the mysterious entrance, first off. Love that I don't know what's happening when it first starts, and then this character starts to form, and that's really cool. I really like, let's go to the last frame. Love the cool, warm playoff. As we enter here, we've got cool light up here, warm light down here. But the problem is that I want to see that cool light more up here. I think we can go cooler with that light. I think this underlight, this shadow is a little bit strong. And then I think, so what's the thing, and this is a fun game that I like to play with these types of creatures. It's like, what's the thing I'm scared of? What's the, like, this creature is gnarling its fangs at me, so I'm afraid it's going to eat me. But because of this extreme red light, I think that you can go, I'm losing, the teeth don't feel as scary to me. And what's like, I want them to go a little bit whiter. And I also want them to be a little bit brighter because at speed, when it's motion blurred and the camera's bouncing around, I really want to feel that. Couple other things. There's some like a smoke element that's happening here. That smoke would be hit by this warm red light, so I would kind of warm that one up a little bit. Love the like black cavernous eyes that you've created. I think those are really. I think that's working really, really well. So yeah, a little bit of desaturation on the teeth. Soften the shadow a little bit. More blue on the top. Love the shaping that you're getting over there. And then the last thing I want to mention was, and I am no expert on this, but the camera shake or the camera movement feels A, intense, and B, like it's intentionally going against what the character's doing here, here, and here. Like those three poses are almost like ding, ding, ding. Like it's going opposite, opposite, opposite. And it's like, it's making me, it's not the way a cameraman would react to it, because you'd kind of maybe be a beat behind something and kind of following it back and forth. And the last thing that I would say, I'm looking at this now and seeing this, is just if I would add, because you're getting such nice specularity on the light up above, and we're losing it on the chest and the air. Like, I would just want to fight to get a little more specularity in there. But all in all, this is a fun shot and really looking great. Okay, so last but not least, we got Megara. So I'm gonna go ahead and this is, so there's a lot of weirdness when the glass is shattering there, right? Like, it's like a disco ball of things. And I don't know if that's intentional, but it was definitely something I noticed right away. So, okay, so with demo reels, I'm never quite certain, you know what, I'm going to, because I'm never quite certain if you want me to give critiques of the individual work or the demo reel as a whole. So, you know, I'll just do both. It's fine. I'll give you feedback. So that was the first thing I noticed, like right out of the gate. The other thing was like these super sharp reflections. They're definitely cards in a 3D, like with these back here, like these reflection maps. It's not really working, and it feels very CG to me. And again, it's just like somebody who's done this before, you kind of pick up on that a lot. And then you're also not getting as much of the influence from the main object, the main point of action that's happening through the scene here. I really like, let's see, like, I like what's going on over here. These books could use a little bit more from the blue in the background, but they're working pretty well. This is very overlit in the background, in the backplate. This one, we could get some more, I tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna talk about the work once through, and then I'll talk about the reel as a whole. This one, we need some more focus on the face. The face is really blending in too much with the background, and we're kind of losing the character, especially in the belly here. We lose the character quite a bit. This is nice. Let's see, for the lighting, it's just with that one, the city looks like it's just modeling with, because there's very little shader work on the buildings. They all look the same, like the same color. They just look like white. They look desaturated, like shades of gray. And the trees all kind of look the same, just kind of like a desaturated green color. There is not a lot of aerial perspective or atmospheric fall off there. This is level design. So I would definitely not include this on a studio that wouldn't be using, that's like not a game studio. So let's look through this one. The black points seem off on that one. Like the black level of the eyes versus what we're seeing in the shirt and the plate, and like the blackness down there. I think actually the plate needs to go a little more contrasty. I think that your CG elements are looking pretty good there. The tracking looks nice. I'm not the best at tracking. Slipping a little bit in there, but all in all, that's not too bad. It's just the black points. It definitely feels like a CG object on top of that there. This is an interesting shot. It's interesting that the pool of light isn't fully framing up the character. And the character is blending into the background a little bit. Just because the tones, like if you kind of squint at it, I guess you see the eyes, but you're also really looking at that. Okay, so now we're back at the beginning. Okay, let's talk about the buildup of the demo reel. So demo reel, you want to put your best work first. Let's see. So this stuff is cool. I just like, is there any way we can do it without the shattering of the glass? Because that was really distracting. Like maybe just I'm trying to look at a cut. Maybe just do it just for like the first little bit before we actually get the smash. And then same thing with that, just like stop it before we get to the smash. Because there's nothing that really happens after that. It's just like, we kind of lose it there. But I think what I would do is just, I would start with this shot. If you can, I would start with this shot with just this for like 3 beats and then have the light kind of coming through and bouncing on it. So even if it's like just a still frame that you're kind of zooming in on, if you can, maybe render out just like 90 frames of that, and then allow, like, because you're kind of like looking at it like, I wonder what's going on here. And then all of a sudden the light kind of starts coming in. And I think, and then stopping it before it gets there. I would start with that. And then if you're applying for an animation company, we just need to see more character work overall. Like this character is really the only one that would be like a traditional character lighting setup for a CG film or CG setup. And like the background is more contrasty than the character. The values are blending in with the area back behind it. We're not getting we're getting some shaping on it, but it's like we're not getting enough to really focus in on the face. The belly is falling off of the hero color. It's looking more red and blue as opposed to what looks like a very green character. You're getting some nice gobo lighting here on the surroundings, and I think that's working out really well, but like the shadow is too crispy. And I do think that you would, it would really benefit you to get some more character work on your reel. But like I said, I mean, but that being said, I don't want to discourage you because you do have some good stuff. Like this shot could be really cool. That they're very interesting. The scale of the bump on this is also, makes it feel much smaller. Makes it feel like, so like the scale of this is interesting to me. So, but yeah, I think, and like this stuff, this environment fly through stuff is, it's fine for if you're doing level design for a game, but definitely don't throw it in for an animation company because it's just it's not quite what they would be looking for. Yeah. Okay. I hope you found that helpful. And for everyone else that's been on here, I hope you guys have enjoyed yourselves. Like I said, I do this every Friday. This one is clicked over just over an hour. This one might be my longest one yet. And I can usually tell by how raspy my voice is getting by the end. But if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to chime in. Let's see what we have here. Anybody else have any questions or anything? Okay, well, I think we're all good. So there we'll leave it. Let's see, reminders. What's the date today? Today is 22nd. Is that true? Something like that. Today is the 22nd. Okay, so next Friday will be our last critique before the Sci-Fi City submissions for that. Yeah, and let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen because I realize I'm doing the crazy, that crazy setup. Okay, so thank you all very much for joining me. If you have any questions at all, make sure you add them in the comments below, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching this, and we will make sure to see them. So keep going. We hope everyone's staying safe out there. Keep lighting, keep pushing yourselves, keep posting your work, and we'll be happy to do these critiques for the time being in order to help you guys out, because we know a lot of people are just looking to improve themselves during this the quarantine time. So keep going, keep pushing yourselves, and we will talk to you all soon. All right, have a great weekend, everybody. Happy lighting.